Oh. Oh no. Wow, that was refreshing. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna have to sanitize everything in here. Okay, let's. Basically, I was just gonna show you a little bit of my process when I start doing the brainstorming and the notes and everything, the process of the podcast. I don't know how many of you have actually taken the time to either visit the Listen to LambChop Podcast playlist that's on the channel here, or gone to Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcast. It's almost anywhere. Pocket Cast, Cloudcast, Overcast, Airplane Cast. I don't know if those are real or not, but if they are, we're probably on there. Listen to LambChop, or not LambChop. Listen to LambChop is the podcast that we run, and if you would like to, I would find it at your wherever you find podcasts, and give us a listen, guys, and also give us a review. Let us know what you think, and if I can find the reviews on all those platforms that people do write, I'll do shout outs on there as well. So basically, a little bit about the process that goes into that is my YouTube channel and my podcast, they're a bit everywhere. Faith moves mountains is my motto, and we do a lot of basically the only goal-oriented thing that comes with the channel at all is obviously the life vlog series, which is now just sharing with you a little bit about my life and a little bit of about what I do on a daily basis or a couple days at a time when I have free time, when I'm not just doing the mundane work day. And sometimes my off days are very mundane, as you can see. You can go back and watch life vlogs where you've seen me play video games before. You've seen me hanging out with my family before. You've seen me grill food. And yeah, I mean, these are things that I do and things that I enjoy. So, but we are what I would say is basically a faith-based, family-friendly channel where we are just trying to bring entertainment to you and make you smile. At least one time in a video, we just want to make you smile. Bring a little joy and positive vibes into your life. That's basically the goal of this channel. But other than that, I don't have a niche or a niche or whatever you want to call it. I don't have, my channel's not all about tacos. It's not all about how to start a YouTube channel. It's not all about skateboarding or cars or anything like that. It's not specific to any one thing. And I guess it's kind of like that phrase or that saying, I'm a jack of all trades, but a master at none, basically. I can do a little bit of everything, but I'm not very good at any one thing. And I just like to share with you whatever I can, whenever I can. So I know that probably part of the issue with my channel and my podcast is that it's all over the place. It bounces off the wall. The first podcast that we did for the Listen to LambChop podcast was about the Wild West. And Cody and I, we were not prepared or knew. We didn't know enough going into it before the first couple days that we just tried to prep. And it was our first podcast that we were going to do for the new channel, Listen to LambChop. We had done some for the old channel, or the old title, GLTV Radio, where we just kind of discussed a few things and talked. And then when we changed it to Listen to LambChop, we decided that we wanted to have more of a set. Oh no. Wow, that was refreshing. I'm not gonna lie. Coming back, we decided that we wanted more structure to the videos, and more preparedness, which is hilarious because the very first episode we went in, we had, he took some notes, I took some notes, and a lot of our notes were exactly the same because we went to the exact same sites that Google popped up when we said all about the Wild West. And I had a magazine from like the History Channel and stuff that we were pulling facts out of, and we were just having like a discussion. Some of our stuff was free thought, but a lot of it we were just reading stuff off of articles in the magazine. And while we were searching for stuff to say during the podcast, unprepared, we were just kind of like, yeah, and then I don't know about this part, but this part said that here it is. And then it was just we wanted so badly to be prepared, and we were very unprepared for what we had planned on doing. So it was kind of comical. I hate that I don't hate it, but I dislike that was the very first episode, because I know a lot of people might click on Listen to LambChop and start with episode 1, and it's not very good. Episodes like 3, 4, and 5 are very good, I think, in my opinion. And the episodes we have coming up are going to be better too. But we're trying to be more. It's almost like the first episode we were trying to be too structured, and we didn't have a lot of information. And the Wild West was just a topic that was so random, and it's not what we should have done. Now we're doing more things that are in our interest, and also that we know more about, that we're more comfortable talking about, that we have more experience about. It's more of an anecdotal experience. We're able to tell our stories and our experiences with these topics and stuff, and then share our honest feelings about that. So, please don't let episode 1 make you turn away from the Listen to LambChop podcast, whether you are watching on the playlist or listening on Spotify, Anchor, etc. Like, go past episode 1 and check out some of our other ones, because I promise it gets better from 1. I promise. That being said, my process now is I sit down. I have a long list of stuff. I had like a 4-page list of ideas. Podcast ideas, things that really interest me, that I wanted to do podcast about, and I'll give you a couple. I'll give you a couple examples real quick. Listen to LambChop Podcast. We have one that we want to do on the age of prohibition, bootleggers, speakeasies, Al Capone, all that kind of stuff. We want to do a podcast on that. However, we want to be a lot more prepared and know what we're kind of talking about than we were for the Wild West one. So that one is on hold for now. One that we can really have a lot of fun with, that I think that we're going to bring up eventually, is the zombie apocalypse. What would you do in that situation? What movies or television shows have done it the most accurately that you would believe if the situation were to occur? Which ones did it best? You know what I mean? Like, there's a ton of things that you could go into conversation about the zombie apocalypse. Is it hypothetical and absolutely have no historical value? Sure, but it's fun. It's a fun conversation to have. It's something that people might want to click on and just think, hey, what do they think about this, And that's the hardest part about doing a podcast, as being, it sounds funny, but being a nobody, you know what I mean? Like, just an average Joe that has a podcast. It's hard to get people to come and listen to your podcast, because they're like, why do I want to listen to that guy talk? Like, what is interesting about what that guy has to say? And that's 100% a valid reason to be skeptical. But, come give us just come give us a shot. Just listen to us on the way to work one day and just see if you like it. If you don't, click off. It's fine. But, I'd say just try anything once, you know what I mean? One episode is like our experiences, the most fun we've ever had at a theme park or theme parks. We're going to have a couple movie episodes where we're going to have just open discussions, hopefully with more than just me and Cody. Hopefully with a few people added in the discussion on Jurassic Park versus Jurassic World, the whole Star Wars universe as a whole, or each episode, deep dive into them. The DC universe, the Marvel universe. One is a title is called A Passion for Cooking and Flavor. You can do anything about that. Alien invasions. I do have that one lined up with a buddy of mine. We are definitely going to tackle that one soon, hopefully. Becoming a dad, fatherhood, and the expectations versus the reality of stuff like that. So yeah, these are just some example titles that I have jotted down. I have like 4 pages of ideas, and whether they come to fruition or not is a totally different question, but they are ideas, and we look at them and we go through the list and we find out which one is most relevant to our lives right now, or which one that we think that we could sit down in the next couple days or the next couple weeks and knock it out and actually be okay. We can actually prepare for it and it turn out pretty good. And you kind of just you have to go. You just go with it. You hit record, and then everything that you say on there is in the podcast. We do it raw. Pretty much unedited. The only edits that we might have is if for some reason the battery dies, cord comes unplugged, something like that. In the playlist, it's a little bit different because sometimes the camera battery might die. Also, it's on a 30-minute runtime per clip. Every 30 minutes that we're sitting there talking, basically we have to get up and go hit the button again. So we'll take turns. Cody will go hit the button, or I'll get up and go hit the button. And you can basically still hear us on the mic, but you hear all the audio going on when you listen to the podcast, and you might get, 10 or 15 seconds might be snipped out in the playlist if you watch the podcast on YouTube. But so I make a list, we brainstorm, we come together, we collaborate on which ones we think is best, and then we sit down, we take notes, and we start jotting questions, our personal answers, stuff that we want to, maybe questions that we might want to engage with the audience with, and just you put those questions out there. Maybe you'll leave a comment on the channel or the podcast, something like that, and we'll be able to answer those questions or interact with people as we go. So that's the idea. Also, it's just an open book. We have some structure, but we leave a lot of open invitation to... Oh, sorry about that. We leave a lot of open invitation to what we want to do in the podcast. So instead of having it so structured, we leave a lot of places where there's a question, we have our base answer, and then that takes us into open discussion where we just kind of sit there and talk about it until it starts to dry up, and then we move on. So there's that much structure instead of this question and this answer, this question and this answer, this question and this answer, this scenario, this situation, blah, 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 blah. And so instead of it just being so question and answer oriented and structured and boring, like someone's just reading out of a book or an article, we try to figure out all this information and leave a lot of room for our discussions and our personal feelings, thoughts, and beliefs, stuff like that, on the subject matter. And we do make sure that we're at least 2 days prepared in advance, because if we're not, it can be a disaster. It's like, I didn't know that we were even talking about that. I have not brushed up on that. I have no idea. And there's some things you're just not going to know. There's some things that the other person are going to think of and research, and the other person's not. But that leaves a lot of open room for discussion during the podcast. Might make it interesting. But yeah, basically I jot it down on paper first, and then I go in and I do a formal note on my Chromebook. I go into Google Docs and just type it up, kind of note style like I have it, but instead of having the notebook with me, I have this with me, and then that way I can look up any articles or any other web pages that might help us during the podcast. I pull those up and leave them open, and then I pull up the Google Doc, and Cody sometimes has his laptop with him as well, and he has all his notes typed up on there. So we know exactly what we're going to talk about. We don't necessarily know what the other one has pulled up on the screen, but we leave that unknown so it's more interesting. So when we go to it, it's fresh and inviting. It's not something where like, I knew he was going to talk about that and I've already prepared that answer in my head. Here you go. We want it to be fresh on the spot and like a live, active conversation to where you guys are listening and you're involved in it. You feel like we're sitting at a table with you, and or in a living room, wherever your comfort zone, and we're having a conversation about this topic. So it could be anything. It could literally be anything. So I want you guys to keep that in mind, and also comment down below what you want to see. what do you want to see when it comes to the podcast? What do you want this podcast to be? What topics would you like us to tackle? Because we are more than open to take those and fly with it. We want to please the customer. You know what I mean? We want to please the audience. We want to do stuff that y'all want to hear about, and we'd be more than happy to tackle those. So just leave a comment down below, or comment on one of the platforms that you find our podcast on, and when we see it, we'll do it. I promise. Once we have the recorder and the headsets over here and the mics and it's all set up, we do a little test run to make sure the audio is where it needs to be, the levels are all right, make sure the camera's right and that we're rolling. And basically we just hit record on the camera, record on the recorder, and that's it. It's game time, and we roll and we have a conversation. And most of our podcasts so far have lasted about an hour. There's been a couple 30-minute ones, but most of them are around an hour. And eventually, you know, as we get better and better at this podcast thing, maybe we'll go for an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that. But we're trying to keep it right around an hour so people can listen to our podcast. The idea right now is for them to listen to half of it on the way to work and the other half on the way home when they've finished a podcast. So if they like it, they can go ahead to the next episode. So still very small with the podcast right now and still growing the YouTube channel, but we have high hopes for a living. And we want to look back at our mothers one day and say, hey, look, Ma, we made it. Those are Panic at the Disco references, if you didn't know. But yeah, so yeah, guys, that's it. That's pretty much the process that we go through as far as the podcast. And wow, 17 minutes. That took me a long time to explain this. So enjoy.